Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he walked through the dense forest of Kepler 442b. The morning sun filtered through the purple leaves above him, casting strange shadows on the ground. He had been a colonial marine for 6 years now, but this planet still felt alien to him. The air was thicker than Earth's and smelled like wet metal mixed with flowers. His squad was on routine patrol near the eastern border of the human settlement. Nothing ever happened on these patrols, which was fine by Jake. He preferred boring days to the alternative. His rifle hung loosely in his hands as he pushed through a cluster of vine-covered trees. "Morrison, you seeing anything out there?" came the voice of Captain Ryan Torres through his comm device. "Negative, sir. Just more purple trees and weird birds," Jake replied, watching a 6-winged creature fly overhead. The patrol was supposed to last another 3 hours. Jake's boots crunched on the fallen leaves as he moved deeper into the forest. The sounds of his squad mates grew distant behind him. He was the point man today, which meant he walked ahead of everyone else to scout for danger. That's when he saw the smoke. A thin column of gray smoke rose from somewhere beyond a hill covered in thick trees. Jake stopped walking and raised his hand to signal the others. Smoke meant fire, and fire meant someone or something was out there. "Torres, I've got smoke at my 2 o'clock, maybe half a mile out," Jake spoke into his comm. "Copy that. Move to investigate, but stay sharp," Torres replied. Jake changed direction and headed toward the smoke. His heart started beating faster. After 2 years on this planet, this was the first sign of anything unusual. The human colony had been built here, because the planet seemed empty of intelligent life. Maybe they had been wrong. As he got closer, Jake could smell burning metal and something else he couldn't identify. The smoke was coming from behind a large cluster of rocks. He moved carefully, keeping his rifle ready. When he reached the rocks and looked around them, his mouth fell open. A spacecraft had crashed into the forest floor. It wasn't like any human ship Jake had ever seen. The hull was smooth and silver with curves that seemed to flow like water. Parts of it were still smoking from the crash. The ship was about the size of a small house and had torn a path through the trees when it came down. Jake spoke quietly into his comm. "Torres, you need to see this. We've got a downed aircraft of unknown origin." "Say again, Morrison." "A crashed alien ship, sir." There was silence for a moment. Then Torres said, "Stay put. We're coming to you." Jake moved closer to the ship. Part of the hull had been torn open, creating a hole big enough for a person to walk through. He could see lights blinking inside. Someone or something might still be alive in there. Against his better judgment, Jake decided to look inside. He pointed his rifle toward the opening and stepped through the torn metal. The inside of the ship was nothing like human technology. Everything glowed with soft blue light, and the walls seemed to be made of crystal. "Hello?" Jake called out. "Anyone in here?" He heard a groan from somewhere deeper in the ship. Jake followed the sound down a corridor that curved like a spiral. The floor felt warm under his boots. More groaning came from a room at the end of the corridor. Jake entered the room and found 2 figures lying on the floor. His eyes went wide. One was clearly not human, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the strange light. The other looked human but had pointed ears and wore clothes that seemed to be made from leaves and bark. The blue-skinned being opened, her eyes first. They were large and silver like mirrors. She looked at Jake and said something in a language he didn't understand. Her voice was musical, like wind chimes. The other figure sat up slowly. She had long blonde hair and green eyes. That seemed to glow slightly. When she spoke, Jake could understand her words. "You are human," she said. Her voice had an accent Jake had never heard before. "Yes, I'm human." "Are you hurt?" Jake asked, lowering his rifle slightly. "We are injured but alive," the blonde woman replied. "I am Lyra Nightwhisper. This is Zara Veltar. We crashed while fleeing from hunters." "Hunters?" Jake asked. "The Krex Empire. They have been tracking us for days," Lyra said as she helped Zara stand up. Zara spoke again in her musical language. Lyra listened and then turned to Jake. She says, "Thank you for finding us." She cannot speak your language yet, but she understands some words. Jake was about to ask more questions when he heard a sound that made his blood run cold. It was a low humming noise coming from outside the ship, like giant insects buzzing. Through the torn hull, he could see shadows moving between the trees. "The hunters," Lyra whispered, her face going pale. "They have found us." Jake grabbed his comm device. "Torres, we have a situation here. I need backup now." "On our way, Morrison. What's your status?" "I've got 2 survivors and unknown hostiles approaching." The humming sound grew louder. Jake could see shapes moving through the forest toward them. They were tall and moved wrong, like spiders walking on 2 legs. Their skin looked like black leather, and they carried weapons that glowed red. "Can either of you fight?" Jake asked Lyra and Zara. Lyra stood up straighter and placed her hand on a curved blade at her side. Zara touched a device on her wrist and it started glowing blue. "We can fight," Lyra said. Jake pointed his rifle toward the entrance to the ship. "Then we fight together." The first of the Krex hunters appeared at the torn opening in the hull. It was 7 feet tall with 4 arms and eyes like burning coals. When it saw Jake, it made a sound like metal scraping against stone and raised its weapon. Jake fired first. His bullets hit the creature in the chest and it stumbled backward. Green blood splattered on the silver walls of the ship. Lyra moved, faster than Jake thought possible. She drew her blade and it began to glow with green light. When she swung it, vines erupted from the ship's floor and wrapped around another Krex hunter that had entered behind the first. Zara pointed her glowing device at a third hunter and a beam of blue energy shot out. The beam hit the creature and it froze in place like a statue. More Krex poured through the opening. Jake kept firing while Lyra's magic filled the ship with growing plants that fought like living weapons. Zara's energy beams turned enemies to ice. "This way!" Lyra shouted, pointing to another part of the ship. The 3 of them ran deeper into the crashed vessel as more hunters entered behind them. Jake could hear Torres and his squad outside, their weapons firing at the Krex in the forest. They reached another torn section of the hull and climbed out into the sunlight. Jake saw his squad mates fighting a group of hunters near the rocks. The Krex weapons made no sound when they fired, but they left smoking holes in the trees. "Torres!" Jake called into his comm as they ran toward the human position. "Morrison! What the hell are these things?" "Long story, sir. We need to get back to base." Jake, Lyra, and Zara reached the other Marines. Together they fought their way through the Krex hunters and retreated toward the human settlement. As they ran, Jake looked at his 2 strange companions and wondered what he had gotten himself into. The human outpost buzzed with activity as Jake walked through the main gate with Lyra and Zara beside him. Word had already spread about the alien contact, and colonists stopped their work to stare at the 2 strange women. Jake could feel the tension in the air like electricity before a storm. Colonel Amy Brooks waited for them in the command center. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had seen action on 3 different worlds. Her gray eyes studied Lyra and Zara with the intensity of a hawk watching its prey. "Morrison, report," she said without taking her eyes off the aliens. Jake stood at attention. "Ma'am, we encountered a crashed vessel with 2 survivors. They were being pursued by hostiles they call the Krex Empire. And you brought them here." "Because?" Brooks asked. "They were under attack, ma'am. It seemed like the right thing to do." Brooks walked around Lyra and Zara like she was inspecting equipment. "Can they understand me?" "I can understand and speak your language," Lyra said. "My companion Zara is learning quickly, but she speaks her own tongue." Zara stepped forward and spoke in accented English. "I thank you for shelter. We mean no harm to your people." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Fast learner." Dr. Lisa Kane entered the command center carrying a tablet and looking excited. She was the colony's xenobiologist, a woman who had spent her whole career hoping to meet alien life. Now she had 2 species to study. "Colonel, this is incredible," Kane said. "We're looking at first contact with not 1, but 2 alien species." "Actually, Doctor, we've been watching your people for some time," Lyra said. "You are not the first humans we have encountered." The room went quiet. Brooks stepped closer to Lyra. "Explain." Lyra looked at Zara, who nodded. "My people are called elves by the old human legends. We have been on this galaxy's worlds for thousands of years. We usually hide from younger races, but the Krex threat has changed everything." "And you?" Brooks asked Zara. "My people are the Velnari," Zara replied. We watch and study other species. Humans show great promise for such a young civilization. Jake watched the conversation unfold and felt like he was in the middle of something much bigger than a simple patrol mission. The universe had suddenly become a lot more crowded. "What do you know about these Creks?" Brooks asked. Lyra's expression darkened. "They are conquerors. They find species that are useful to them and enslave them. Those that resist are destroyed. They have been expanding across this part of the galaxy for centuries." "Why are they after you specifically?" Kane asked. "Because we were returning from a diplomatic mission," Zara said. "We were trying to build an alliance between our peoples and others to stand against the Creks." Brooks crossed her arms. "And now you want to add humans to this alliance?" "Humans have something the Creks fear," Lyra said. "You adapt quickly and you fight with great courage. You also have something my people and Zara's people sometimes lack. Which is? You work together even when you disagree. You find ways to cooperate with others who are different from you." An alarm started ringing throughout the outpost. Red lights flashed on the walls. A young Marine ran into the command center. "Colonel, we have incoming ships. Unknown configuration." Brooks grabbed her comm device. "All units to defensive positions. This is not a drill." Everyone rushed outside. In the sky above the outpost, 3 dark ships hung in the air like storm clouds. They were angular and sharp, nothing like the smooth curves of Zara's crashed vessel. Red lights pulsed along their hulls. "Creks battlecruisers," Lyra said grimly. The ships began descending toward the outpost. Jake could see gunports opening along their sides. The human defensive systems came online, missile launchers and energy cannons rotating to track the incoming threat. "Colonel, we're receiving a transmission," the communications officer called out. "Put it through." A harsh voice filled the air, speaking in a language that sounded like metal grinding against stone. After a moment, the voice switched to accented English. "Humans of this settlement, you harbor fugitives of the Creks Empire. Surrender them now and your deaths will be quick." Brooks grabbed the comm microphone. "This is Colonel Brooks of the Kepler colony. The individuals under our protection have requested asylum. We don't recognize Creks authority in this system." The voice laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Then you will share their fate." The first Creks ship opened fire. Beams of red energy struck the outpost's shield generator, causing it to spark and smoke. The human weapons returned fire, missiles streaking toward the alien ships. Jake found himself running toward the armory with Lyra and Zara following him. "We need better weapons if we're going to fight those things." "Your weapons will not penetrate their shields easily," Zara said. "But I can modify them with my technology. And I can enhance them with elven magic," Lyra added. They reached the armory as another barrage from the Creks ships shook the ground. Jake grabbed extra ammunition while Zara examined a rocket launcher. She touched a device on her wrist to the weapon, and blue energy flowed into it. Lyra placed her hands on a pile of grenades. Green light surrounded them, and when it faded, vines were growing around each explosive. "The vines will seek out targets and hold them while the grenades detonate," she explained. Jake picked up one of the modified grenades. "That's useful." They ran back outside where the battle was intensifying. Human Marines had taken positions behind barriers and were firing at Creks troops that had landed near the perimeter. The aliens moved fast and fired weapons that seemed to bend space around their targets. Jake aimed his rifle at a group of Creks soldiers and fired. His bullets, enhanced by Zara's technology, punched through their armor like it was paper. Beside him, Lyra drew her blade and it erupted into green. "Fire!" When she pointed it at the enemy, thick roots burst from the ground and wrapped around their legs. Zara activated her wrist device and blue energy surrounded her like armor. When Creks' energy beams hit her, they bounced off harmlessly. She returned. Fire with her own weapon, each shot turning an enemy into a block of ice. The 3 of them fought side by side, covering each other as they moved between defensive positions. Jake found that he could anticipate what Lyra and Zara would do before. They did it like they were connected somehow. "We're being overwhelmed," Torres called out over the comm. "They've broken through the east wall." Jake looked toward the east side of the outpost and saw Creks soldiers pouring through a gap in the defenses. Human Marines were falling back under. "Heavy fire. We need to close that gap," he said. "Together," Lyra agreed. "Together," Zara repeated. The 3 of them ran toward the breach. Jake threw one of Lyra's enhanced grenades into the group of Krek soldiers. The vines wrapped around their weapons while the explosion scattered them. Zara fired her ice beams to freeze several more in place. Lyra summoned a wall of thorned vines to block the gap, but more Kreks kept coming. Jake realized they were being pushed back despite their enhanced weapons and magic. The aliens simply had too many ships and soldiers. "Colonel," Jake called into his comm, "we need to evacuate the civilian areas." "Already in progress, Morrison. Can you hold that position?" Jake looked at Lyra and Zara. Both women nodded grimly. "We'll hold as long as we can." As night fell over the outpost, the battle continued. Jake found himself wondering if this was how the universe ended for humans before they had really gotten started. But every time he looked at his two alien companions fighting beside him, he felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. Maybe together, they could find a way to survive this. Maybe the alliance Lyra and Zara had talked about wasn't just a dream. Maybe 3 different species really could stand together against the darkness. The Krek's ships regrouped for another attack, their red lights pulsing in the night sky. Jake checked his ammunition and prepared for the next wave. Whatever happened, next he wouldn't face it alone. 3 weeks after the attack on the outpost, Jake found himself in a place he never thought he would be. He stood in the briefing room of a joint military base that had been built in record time. Around the table sat humans, elves, and Velnari, officers planning their first combined operation against the Krek's empire. The base itself was a marvel of cooperation. Human engineering had provided the basic structure, elven magic had strengthened it beyond normal limits, and Velnari technology had added shields and advanced communications. Jake still couldn't believe how quickly the 3 species had learned to work together. Colonel Brooks stood at the head of the table next to 2 new faces. Mira Shadowleaf was Lyra's sister, a tall elf with silver hair and scars on her arms from many battles. Admiral Kexthu was a Velnari military commander whose blue skin was marked with golden patterns that showed his rank. Intelligence reports indicate the Kreks are building a staging ground on the moon of Kepler 442c, Brooks said, pointing to a holographic display. If they complete it, they'll be able to bring in their main fleet. "How many enemies?" asked Captain Ryan Torres. Admiral Kexthu touched the display and the image changed. "Our scouts estimate 3,000 Krek's troops and 50 heavy weapons platforms." Jake whistled softly. "That's a lot of firepower, which is why we're going to hit them." "Before they finish building," Mira said. Her voice was like her sister's, but colder, harder. "Elven strike teams will disable their sensors while human forces attack the main installation. And Velnari ships will provide air support," the Admiral added. Jake raised his hand. "What about the 3 of us? Lyra, Zara, and me worked well together during the outpost battle." Brooks nodded. "You 3 will be the advance team. You'll infiltrate the base and take out their communication array so they can't call for reinforcements." After the briefing, Jake walked outside with Lyra and Zara. The base was busy with soldiers from 3 species preparing for battle. Human marines cleaned their weapons next to elven warriors sharpening their blades. Velnari technicians worked on flying vehicles that looked like they were made of liquid metal. "Are you nervous?" Lyra asked Jake as they watched the preparations. "Always am before a mission," Jake replied, "but this feels different. Bigger." "It is bigger," Zara said. "This battle will determine if our alliance can truly work together or if we will fall separately to the Kreks." They spent the next day training together. Jake learned that elven combat magic could enhance human reflexes and accuracy. Zara showed him how her technology could make his weapons hit targets around corners. Most importantly, the 3 of them learned to fight as one unit instead of 3 separate people. "You move like you can read each other's minds," Mira observed during one training session. "Sometimes it feels like we can," Lyra replied, and Jake found himself nodding in agreement. The night before the mission, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked around the base and found Lyra sitting by herself near the elven section. She was looking up at the stars with a sad expression on her face. "Mind if I sit?" Jake asked. "Please do," Lyra said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lyra spoke quietly. "I have lived for more than a century, but I have never been in a battle like this. Fighting beside humans and Velnari against an enemy that threatens all our worlds, Scared? Jake asked. Terrified, Lyra admitted, but also hopeful. My people have hidden from the galaxy for so long. Now we're finally standing up and fighting for something. They were joined by Zara, who moved silently across the grass. I could not sleep either, she said. Pre-mission nerves, Jake said. Perhaps, Zara replied. Or perhaps we sense that tomorrow will change all our lives. The mission began before dawn. Jake, Lyra, and Zara rode in a stealth transport that used both human and Velnari technology to avoid detection. The moon's surface was gray and airless, covered with the half-built structures of the Krex staging ground. They landed 2 miles from the target and made their way across the rocky terrain on foot. Jake wore a modified spacesuit that Zara had enhanced with her technology. Lyra's magic allowed her to breathe the thin atmosphere without any equipment at all. Sensors ahead, Zara whispered into their comm system. Lyra raised her hand and green energy flowed from her fingers. The Krex detection equipment grew thick with vines that blocked their scanning beams. The 3 of them slipped past the blinded sensors and continued toward the communication array. The Krex base was larger than the intelligence reports had suggested. Tall towers reached toward the black sky, connected by bridges that hummed with energy. Thousands of alien soldiers moved between the buildings like ants in a hive. New plan, Jake said as they crouched behind a rock formation. That array is too well guarded for a direct approach. I can create a distraction, Lyra offered. No, too dangerous, Jake replied. We go in quiet and fast. Zara pointed to a maintenance tunnel that led under the base. Velnari construction techniques. I can open that entrance. They made their way to the tunnel and Zara placed her hand on what looked like solid rock. The stone flowed like water and opened into a passage. Inside, the tunnel was filled with pipes and cables that carried power throughout the base. Jake led the way through the narrow space, his rifle ready. Behind him, Lyra moved silently, her elven training making her almost invisible in the shadows. Zara followed last, her blue skin glowing faintly in the darkness. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 directions. Jake was about to choose the middle path when he heard footsteps above them. Heavy boots walked across metal floors in perfect rhythm. Patrol, Jake whispered. They waited until the footsteps passed, then continued toward the communication array. The tunnel ended at a grate that looked into the main power room of the base. Through the metal bars, Jake could see the massive communication dish surrounded by Krex guards. 12 guards, he counted quietly. I can handle 6 with magic, Lyra said. And I can freeze the other 6, Zara added. On my mark, Jake said. 3, 2, 1, go. They burst through the grate together. Jake's rifle fired in controlled bursts, while Lyra's magic sent vines erupting from the floor. Zara's ice beams turned half the guards into frozen statues before they could raise their weapons. But the sound of battle attracted more enemies. Alarms began ringing throughout the base, and Jake could hear running footsteps coming from all directions. Plant the charges, he called to Zara, while firing at Krex soldiers who poured through the doorways. Zara attached Velnari explosives to the communication array while Lyra used her magic to seal the entrances with thick walls of thorns. Jake kept watch, his enhanced weapons cutting down any enemy who tried to break through. Charges set, Zara announced. Let's go, Jake said. They ran for the tunnel entrance but found their path blocked by a massive Krex war leader. The creature was 9 feet tall with armor that looked like it was made from black metal. Its 4 arms held weapons that crackled with red energy. The human who defies the Empire, the war leader said in broken English. You will die slowly. The creature fired all 4 weapons at once. Jake dove to the side as energy beams scorched the air where he had been standing. Lyra rolled behind a control console while Zara created a shield of blue energy. Jake came up firing, but his bullets bounced off the war leader's armor. Lyra's magic vines wrapped around the creature's legs, but it broke free with brute strength. Zara's ice beam hit its chest, but only created a thin layer of frost. We need to work together, Jake shouted. The 3 of them moved as one. Jake fired at the creature's helmet to distract it, while Lyra used her magic to weaken its armor. Zara waited for the perfect moment, and then hit the weakened armor with her most powerful ice beam. The war leader roared as its armor cracked and ice spread across its body. But it wasn't finished. With its last breath, it triggered a device on its belt. The base is going into lockdown, Zara said urgently. We have 30 seconds before the exits seal. They ran for the tunnel as metal doors began slamming shut throughout the base. Behind them, the charges Zara had planted exploded, sending the communication array crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. Jake felt something hit his back as they reached the tunnel entrance. Pain shot through his body and he stumbled. A Krex energy beam had found its mark. "Jake!" Lyra cried out. "Keep moving!" he gasped, pushing them ahead of him into the tunnel. They made it outside just as the base went into full lockdown. Jake collapsed, on the rocky ground, his back burning with pain from the energy weapon. Lyra knelt beside him and placed her hands on his wound. Green light flowed from her fingers, and Jake felt some of the pain fade. Zara used her technology to scan his injuries. "The beam damaged his spine," Zara said. "He needs medical attention immediately." "I can stabilize him with healing magic," Lyra replied, "but he'll need both our help to recover fully." As they worked to save his life, Jake realized something had changed between the three of them. They weren't just allies anymore. They were something more, bound together by battle and trust, and something deeper he couldn't quite name. The main assault began as they carried Jake back to the extraction point. Human ships filled the sky while elven warriors attacked from the ground. Velnari energy weapons lit up the darkness like falling stars. The alliance was working, 3 species fighting as one against a common enemy. Jake woke up in a medical bay that looked like something from a dream. Human technology mixed with elven healing crystals and Velnari energy fields. He had been unconscious for 3 days while doctors from all 3 species worked to repair the damage from the Krex energy weapon. Lyra sat in a chair beside his bed, her green eyes tired but relieved. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Jake said, trying to sit up. "But alive, thanks to you and Zara." "We almost lost you," Lyra said quietly. "The energy beam nearly severed your spinal cord." Zara entered the room carrying a tablet with his medical readings. "The healing is progressing well. Elven magic and Velnari medical technology work surprisingly well together." Jake looked around the room. "Where are we?" "The new Joint Command Station," Zara replied. "The mission was a success. Without their communication array, the Krex staging ground fell within hours." "But that's not the end of it," Lyra said, her expression growing serious. "Our scouts have detected the main Krex fleet moving toward this system. 300 ships carrying 500,000 soldiers." Jake felt his heart sink. "When?" 2 weeks, Zara said. "Maybe less." General Patricia Hill entered the medical bay. She was the new commander of all human forces in the system, a tough woman with gray hair and steel in her eyes. Behind her came Elder Sylvanus Moonweaver, an ancient elf whose long white beard reached almost to the floor, and High Counselor Nix Velmore, a Velnari with golden markings that indicated her high rank. "Morrison," General Hill said. "Good to see you awake. We need to discuss the situation." Jake tried to stand, but Lyra pushed him back down. "Whatever it is, I can handle it from here." Elder Moonweaver stepped forward. "The Krex Empire has committed its full fleet to destroying our alliance. This will be the largest space battle in this part of the galaxy." "What's our status?" Jake asked. 50 human ships, 30 elven vessels, and 40 Velnari cruisers, High Counselor Velmore replied. "We are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. But we have advantages they don't expect," General Hill added. "Our ships can work together in ways that will surprise them." Jake understood. "You want to use combined tactics." "Exactly. Human ships will provide the main firepower, elven vessels will use their speed and stealth capabilities, and Velnari cruisers will coordinate everything with their advanced sensors." "There's more," Elder Moonweaver said. "We've developed a plan to strike at the heart of their fleet. If we can destroy their command ship, the rest of their forces will be thrown into chaos." Zara pulled up a holographic display showing the Krex fleet formation. "The command ship is here, in the center of their formation. It's protected by 50 of their best warships." "Getting to it will be nearly impossible," Jake said. "Not impossible," Lyra said. "Difficult, but not impossible." General Hill leaned forward. "We need a small team to infiltrate the command ship and destroy it from within. Someone who can work with technology from all 3 species." Jake looked at Lyra and Zara. "The three of us again." "It's the only way," High Counselor Velmore said. "You've proven you can work together under impossible conditions." "But there's a problem," Elder Moonweaver said. "The stealth ship we've built can only carry 2 people safely. Adding a third would overload the systems." The room went quiet. Jake felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. After everything they had been through together, he would have to choose between Lyra and Zara. "I'll go alone," he said. "Impossible," Zara replied. "You need someone who understands Krex technology to help you navigate their ship. And you need elven magic to get past their security systems," Lyra added. "Both of you are right," Jake said, "but I can only take one." He looked at Lyra, then at Zara. Both women had saved his life multiple times. Both had become more important to him than he had ever expected. How could he choose between them? "I'll take Zara," he said finally. "Her technical knowledge will be essential for destroying the command ship." Lyra's face didn't change expression, but Jake saw something flicker in her green eyes. "Pain, maybe, or disappointment." "I understand," she said quietly. "I'll coordinate the external attack." The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Jake and Zara trained together on the stealth ship, while Lyra worked with the fleet commanders to plan the main battle. The three of them barely spoke to each other outside of mission briefings. Jake found himself lying awake at night, wondering if he had made the right choice. Every time he saw Lyra, he felt like he had betrayed something important. But the mission came first. It always had to come first. The night before the battle, Lyra came to see him in his quarters. "I wanted to say goodbye," she said, "in case we don't see each other again. Lyra, I'm sorry. I had to choose based on the mission requirements." "I know," she replied, "and you chose correctly. Zara's knowledge of technology will give you the best chance of success." She stepped closer to him. "But I want you to know something. These past months fighting beside you have been the most important of my long life." Before Jake could respond, she kissed him. It was soft and warm and tasted like spring flowers. When she pulled away, there were tears in her eyes. "Come back, to us," she said. And then she was gone. The battle began at dawn. Jake and Zara launched in their stealth ship while the Allied fleet engaged the Krex forces. Through the ship's sensors, Jake could see the largest space battle he had ever witnessed. Ships from 3 species fought against the black holes of the Krex Empire while energy weapons lit up the darkness between worlds. "Lyra's squadron is performing perfectly," Zara said, monitoring the battle. "She's drawing the enemy fighters away from our approach vector." Jake piloted the stealth ship through the chaos of the battle. Explosions bloomed around them like deadly flowers, while fighters from both sides twisted through space in deadly dances. The stealth technology kept them invisible, but Jake knew it wouldn't last forever. "There," Zara pointed at the massive Krex command ship. It was 3 times larger than any other vessel in the fleet, black and angular like a floating fortress. They docked with the command ship through a maintenance port that Zara had identified from stolen schematics. Inside, the ship was a maze of corridors filled with the sound of marching feet and battle commands. Jake and Zara made their way toward the ship's power core, avoiding patrols and security systems. Zara's technology allowed them to become nearly invisible, while Jake's enhanced weapons cut through any enemies they couldn't avoid. They reached the power core just as the battle outside reached its peak. Through the ship's hull, Jake could feel the vibrations of weapons fire and explosions. "The charges are set," Zara said. "We have 5 minutes to reach the escape pods." They ran through the corridors as alarms began ringing throughout the ship. Krex soldiers appeared from every direction, their weapons filling the air with red energy beams. Jake fought like a man possessed, his rifle cutting down enemies while Zara's ice weapons froze others in place. But there were too many of them. A massive explosion rocked the ship as one of their charges detonated early. Jake was thrown against a wall, and when he looked up, he saw Zara surrounded by a dozen Krex warriors. "Go," she called to him. "Complete the mission." "I'm not leaving you," Jake shouted back. "You have to," Zara replied. "The Alliance depends on this." Jake made the hardest decision of his life. He ran for the escape pods while Zara fought the Krex soldiers alone. Behind him, he heard the sound of her weapons firing and the roars of angry enemies. He reached an escape pod just as the main charges exploded. The Krek's command ship tore itself apart from within, taking its crew and its secrets with it into the darkness. As Jake's pod flew away from the dying ship, he saw the Krek's fleet beginning to scatter. Without their command vessel, they were losing coordination and discipline. The Alliance fleet pressed their advantage, driving the invaders away from the system. But Jake felt no joy in their victory. Somewhere in the wreckage behind him, Zara was gone. He had saved the Alliance by sacrificing someone he cared about. When his pod was picked up by a human rescue ship, Jake learned that Lyra's squadron had also paid a heavy price. She had led a desperate attack on a Krek's carrier to save a group of human destroyers, and her ship had been badly damaged in the fighting. The Alliance had won, but victory tasted like ashes in Jake's mouth. He had gained a galaxy and lost 2 people who meant more to him than he had realized. As the rescue ship carried him back to the command station, Jake wondered if the price of victory was always this high. 6 months had passed since the Great Battle, and Jake stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the first joint facility built by all 3 species. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from human, elven, and Velnari fleets working together to patrol the system. The war was over, but the real work of building peace was just beginning. Jake wore the dress uniform of a major, his new rank earned through the battles they had fought together. On his chest were medals from all 3 governments recognizing his role in forging the Alliance. But the decorations felt heavy, reminders of the friends he had lost along the way. "You look like someone attending a funeral instead of a celebration," came a familiar voice behind him. Jake turned around and his heart nearly stopped. Zara stood in the doorway, very much alive. Her blue skin bore new scars from the battle on the command ship, and she walked with a slight limp, but her silver eyes sparkled with the same intelligence he remembered. "Zara," he breathed. "But how? I saw the ship explode." "Velnari escape pods are very advanced," she said with a smile. "I was rescued by one of our search ships 3 days after the battle. I've been in medical treatment since then." Jake crossed the room in 2 quick steps and wrapped her in a hug. "I thought I had lost you." "You nearly did," Zara said, "but I'm harder to kill than most people think." They were interrupted by another voice. "I see I'm not the only one who wanted to surprise him." Lyra entered the observation deck wearing robes of green and gold that marked her new position as an elven ambassador. Her left arm was in a healing brace from her battle injuries, but she moved with the same grace Jake remembered. "Lyra," Jake said, hardly believing his eyes. "When did you get here?" "An hour ago," she replied. "I wanted to be here for the ceremony." Jake looked back and forth between the 2 women. "What ceremony?" Ambassador Helen Cross entered the room, followed by Prince Elindra Starweaver and High Counselor Nix Velmore. All 3 wore formal robes and carried ceremonial items from their respective cultures. "Major Morrison," Ambassador Cross said, "we're here to honor your service to the Alliance." "The battles you fought helped save all our peoples," Prince Elindra added. "But more than that," High Counselor Velmore said, "you helped prove that different species can work together as equals." Jake stood at attention. "I was just doing my duty." "You did much more than that," Lyra said. "You showed us what was possible when we stopped seeing each other as aliens and started seeing each other as people. Which brings us to why we're really here," Zara added. The 3 officials stepped forward. Ambassador Cross spoke first. "Major Morrison, by the authority of the Earth Colonial Government, you are hereby awarded the Cross of Valor for extraordinary heroism in the face of enemy action." Prince Elindra continued. "By the authority of the Elven High Council, you are granted the Leaf of Courage, our highest honor for those who risk their lives to protect others." High Counselor Velmore concluded. "By the authority of the Velnari Assembly, you receive the Crystal of Unity, awarded to those who build bridges between different peoples." Jake accepted each medal with proper ceremony, but his attention kept drifting to Lyra and Zara. Something was happening here that went beyond military decorations. After the officials left, Jake found himself alone with the 2 women who had changed his life. "There's something we need to discuss," Lyra said. "In our cultures," Zara added, Warriors who forge alliances between peoples are entitled to claim a special reward. Jake looked confused. What kind of reward? The companionship of those who fought beside them, Lyra explained. It's an ancient tradition among the elves. And among the Velnari as well, Zara said. When three people bond in battle and save each other's lives repeatedly, they have the right to formalize that bond. Jake's heart started beating faster. What are you saying? We're saying that we love you, Lyra said simply. Both of us. And we love each other, Zara added. The three of us have become something special. Jake sat down heavily in a nearby chair. But that's impossible. I can't be with both of you. Why not? Lyra asked. Your human customs say you can only love one person at a time, but our cultures are different. In Elven society, bonds between three people are considered the strongest possible connection, Lyra explained. And Velnari believe that love grows stronger when it's shared rather than hoarded, Zara said. Jake looked at both women. You're serious about this? Completely serious, Lyra replied. We've been talking about it for months. While you thought we were dead or separated, we were planning this moment, Zara said. Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the three fleets working together, ships from different worlds moving in perfect coordination. It was beautiful and impossible and somehow exactly right. What would this mean exactly? He asked. It would mean we're family, Lyra said. All three of us, bound together by choice and love and commitment. It would mean building a life together, Zara added. Exploring the galaxy, maybe starting the first tri-species colony. It would mean never having to choose between us again, Lyra said softly. Jake turned back to face them. And you're both okay with this? Really okay? Jake, Lyra said, stepping closer. I've lived for more than a century. I've never felt about anyone the way I feel about you and Zara. And I've studied dozens of species across the galaxy, Zara said. I've never found people who complete me the way you two do. Jake thought about everything they had been through together. The crashed ship where they first met. The battle at the outpost where they learned to fight as one. The mission to destroy the command ship where he had to choose between them. All of it had led to this moment. Yes, he said quietly. Yes? Lyra asked. Yes, Jake said louder. Yes to all of it. To both of you. To whatever comes next. Lyra and Zara moved toward him at the same time. The three of them came together in the middle of the room, arms around each other, foreheads touching. So what happens now? Jake asked. Now we go home, Zara said. Home? Jake asked. The new colony world, Lyra explained. Kepler 442. It's being settled by volunteers from all three species. And they need people to help run things, Zara added. People who understand how to make different cultures work together. Jake looked out the window again at the mixed fleets. A new world where humans, elves, and Velnari live side by side. A new world where love isn't limited by species or old prejudices, Lyra said. A new world where three people who found each other in the middle of a war can build something beautiful. Together, Zara concluded. 6 months later, Jake stood on the porch of a house that was unlike anything ever built before. Human engineering had provided the basic structure. Elven magic had made it grow from the living wood of the planet's trees, and Velnari technology had given it systems that responded to thought and emotion. Lyra was in the garden, using her magic to help crops from 3 different worlds grow in the alien soil. Zara was in the workshop, building devices that would help the colonists communicate with the planet's native wildlife. Jake watched them both and felt a contentment he had never known before. The universe was vast and full of wonders and dangers, but he was no longer facing it alone. As the sun set over their new world, painting the sky in colors that had no names in any human language, Jake realized that his unexpected reward had become something much more important. It had become home.